Quarterbacks selected first overall are consistently put in positions to fail. It's literally how the draft process works. Be the worst team, get the first pick. The process attempts to even the playing field by providing the have-nots a chance to become part of the haves. But what if you're one of the players drafted?
Look at me, son. It's not your fault.
Sure, you could attempt to force your way to another destination, but that's only worked a handful of times, and it's usually reserved for a select few. What you're likely going to have to do is deal with being drafted by a team that is not prepared to win, and handle the media scrutiny that comes with losing. It is far from ideal, but that's how great college players are rewarded by the NFL draft. And occasionally, it breaks talented quarterbacks who are not able to overcome terrible circumstances. Welcome back to Unlikely Success. Like, comment, and if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. Today, we're going to look at two quarterbacks drafted first overall this century who became victims of the circumstances they were drafted into, and a third who seems to be on his way to the exact same destiny. Our first name is David Carr, the first ever selection by the Houston Texans. This meant a pair of things. His name would be part of the NFL history books, and he would be forced to grow with an inexperienced organization. David had a stellar season at Fresno State, which landed him in the Heisman race and vaulted him to the top of the draft. Carr would suffer a bad rookie season, posting a 4-12 record, throwing for nearly 2,600 yards, 9 touchdowns, 15 picks, but he also set an unenviable record of being sacked more than any quarterback in NFL history, 76 times. In my opinion, these sacks changed his career forever. Over the next 4 seasons, he didn't post a winning record, threw for exactly 50 touchdowns and 50 interceptions, and developed bad habits as a byproduct of all the sacks. After the 2006 season, a career year for Carr, he would leave the Texans for the Carolina Panthers. Effectively, this ended his opportunity to ever be a franchise QB. He would start 4 more games over 5 seasons, and while he is seen as a draft bust, I would contend he is a what could have been story. Carr was a victim of bad circumstances, and joining a team nowhere near ready to win. At least his time as a pro was a financial success, because it was far from what the Texans or David thought it would be on the field.
Do you think if you had gone later in the draft, but maybe to a better team, that maybe you would have had a better career instead of getting sacked 65 times every year?
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, I think about that all the time. So I remember even being in Pittsburgh playing in a preseason game, and here comes Ben Roethlisberger picked in the middle of the first round, and I'm like, this is all they need. They just need a quarterback. They got a great football team. Yeah. And there's situations like that all over the place. You see where Aaron Rodgers lands. He sits there for a while, and he's got to be on TV and be in that awkward green room moment where, oh man, they haven't taken. Well, he lands in a perfect place with a Hall of Fame quarterback to kind of show him the ropes, even though it was a little rocky at the beginning. He got to jump right in there. So, there's no doubt, man. I mean, he's Tom Coughlin used to always tell me, you're only good as the guys around you, and this is a team for a reason.
The second name we're going to discuss today is 2010's first overall pick, Sam Bradford. Sam Bradford was probably better than you think in the NFL, but due to the sad state of the St. Louis Rams when they drafted him, he was always bound for failure. The Rams were a far cry from the greatest show on turf, which won a Super Bowl just 10 years earlier. Instead, they were a talentless, coach-changing, poorly run franchise looking to turn things around. After winning Rookie of the Year, Bradford would suffer an ankle injury that bothered him quite a bit during his second season, and he would go 1-9 on an awful Rams team that finished 2-14. Sam would become part of off-season trade rumors, since the Rams owned the second pick, but the team opted to trade the pick instead of him. 2012 would go on to be a career year for Bradford in both yards and touchdowns. It showed impressive development. Unfortunately, he would be injured in Week 7 of the 2013 season and traded before the Rams could surround him with enough talent to ever win. He would go on to play for the Eagles, Vikings, and Cardinals, and live up to some of the potential that had made him such a coveted prospect. Bradford's career is consistently talked about leading with his injuries, but it should not be forgotten that every full season he played resulted in over 3,500 yards passing and an average of 19 touchdowns. He was traded twice for decent pick packages, and even signed a 1-year, $20 million deal with the Cardinals before retiring after that season. He only played 1 year with an elite set of wide receivers, and it was a great year for the Vikings. I wish Bradford had become a success, but I refuse to call him a bust. He joined the Rams during one of their darkest periods and showed that he could succeed when surrounded by talent.
He's too good to give up on, and he was so good that 3 teams have given up a lot for him. And it's really bad. He gets a bad rap. He's got a bum knee, but he really does get a bum rap. He started 15 games last year, 14 the year before. He started 16 twice in his career. So this idea of Sam Bradford being fragile or being soft is really an overstatement. I guess I just reject this idea that he's just a star-crossed guy, underachiever. He's extremely accurate, set an all-time record checking it down, pushing it down in week 1 against the Saints, albeit. He's a better player than his reputation would lead you to believe.
He's a better player than the numbers show, but if he's not available.
Our final name is Bryce Young, a star at Alabama, with tremendous feel for the game and poise that seemed like a rare ability. Sure, he played on a stacked college team, but he also excelled individually. The question for Young was not ability, it was size. Bryce is short by NFL standards, small by NFL standards, and it's near comical when you see him playing quarterback on Sundays. Bryce was selected first overall by the Carolina Panthers, who had a new owner wanting to make a splash. Since picking him, the team has gotten noticeably worse at nearly every position group, changed coaches, and he is losing confidence by the weekend. Finding a way to success seems to be getting further and further away for Young, but it's hard to believe he can be this bad after how great he was in college. Hopefully Bryce can find some momentum and salvage his career.
Big story with Bryce Young being benched. I feel bad for him. Not every number 1 pick, not every first-round pick at that position should start. Bryce Young, he just seemed overwhelmed by it. If I'm playing at Alabama and I've got the offensive line, I got a Hall of Fame coach, I got a running back, I got wide receivers who are first-round pick, it's pretty easy. It's not easy in Carolina, although I've been told their offensive line is a lot better than I'm giving them credit for. They don't have playmakers there. And the first thing that goes with these quarterbacks is your confidence. And then you get into bad habits. And then all of a sudden you want the ball out of your hands. You don't want to be running for your life. I've said it since he was being drafted. I don't know if he can play. I saw him at Alabama and he looked great. But there are a lot of people who look great in college. And I don't know if Carolina really put him out there in a position to succeed.
With all this being said, NFL situations can make or break players entering the league. There are obvious correlations between success and surroundings, but in football, they can mean the difference between being seen as a legend or a draft bust. David Carr and Sam Bradford were talented enough to succeed in the NFL, but their circumstances were simply too much to overcome. Bryce Young may be on his way to becoming a similar story to these two, and it's an unfortunate reality in the NFL that for most players, where they are drafted matters greatly. This has been The Unlikely Success.
This dude is the former number 1 overall pick who couldn't shine Ben Roethlisberger's shoes on a muddy day, and you got the nerve, the audacity, the unmitigated gall to sit up there and open your mouth when it took you 10 years to throw for as many yards as Ben Roethlisberger can do inside of 3? Really?